Before I can start talking about how stupid and ridiculous and moronic creationism truly is, I have to give you the history of creationism. Therefore, once I get to a lecture in History 01 about Christian fundamentalists in U.S. history, I will not repeat the Skepticism 101 lecture I'm about to give you right now. Instead, I will start off from where this lecture will end, expecting you to re-watch this video if you have forgotten by then the history of creationism. However, on that future day, I will insert into the description the link to this video so that you can easily re-watch it, unpause the video of that future day, and then let me just go off on a non-introductory lecture about American Christian fundamentalists. Without further ado, here is an introduction to Christian fundamentalists in a lecture for Skepticism 101, not History 01. Up until the 1870s, the United States wasn't just predominantly Protestant, it was predominantly evangelical Protestant. You see, just as Catholics, Orthodox Christians, and Protestants make up the three sects of Christianity, so as you can see here, the Christians are divided into Catholics, Orthodox Christians, and Protestants, but that's not the whole story. In the United States of America, before the 1870s, Protestants were divided into mainline and evangelical. Most American Protestants were evangelical, while only a minority of them were mainline. You see, the mainline Protestants believe that Christianity is equally as valid as other religions, and therefore will not try to convert non-Christians, whereas the evangelical Protestants, on the other hand, believe that Christianity, unlike other religions, provides an accurate description of the universe, and therefore try to convert non-Christians. Even during the Civil War, both Northerners and Southerners were mostly evangelical Protestants. However, everything changed in the 1870s. Charles Darwin's book, Origin of Species, finally arrived in the United States, thereby spreading his theory of evolution to the American population. This theory challenged a literal reading of the Bible, specifically the book of Genesis in the Old Testament of the Bible. The book of Genesis says that God created Adam out of dust and created Eve from Adam's rib, and that when Adam and Eve finally procreated together, they became the parents of all of humanity. If you take this biblical statement very literally, then it does contradict the theory of evolution, which says that humans can trace their lineage back to the ancestor of chimpanzees. From an evolutionary perspective, there is a species of primate called the hominids, and within this species were two populations. One of them evolved to become the human population, while the other evolved to become the chimpanzee population, And eventually, after millions of years, both populations became their own species. That is how humans and chimpanzees share a common ancestor. A common primitive ancestor, that is. Humans did not descend from a husband and wife who look like them, but from primates who resembled both humans and chimpanzees. Thankfully, this fact does not contradict the myriad of metaphorical interpretations of Genesis, but the very disagreement over interpretations is what divided evangelical Protestants into liberals and conservatives. The liberal evangelical Protestants, as evangelicals, still wanted to convert the world to Christianity, but they accepted the theory of evolution, whereas the conservative Protestants did not. However, over the course of time from the 1870s to the 19-teens, more and more conservative Protestants began to accept the theory of evolution. So in 1915, the conservative Protestant movement split into three sub-movements: Holiness Protestants, Pentecostals, and Fundamentalists. Allow me to sum up every dichotomy thus far. The mainline Protestants believe that all religions are equally valid, whereas the evangelical Protestants believe that non-Christians should convert to Christianity. Among the latter Protestants, the liberal evangelical Protestants believe that non-Christians do not necessarily suffer eternal hellfire for not converting to Christianity, whereas the conservative Protestants do believe that non-Christians will suffer such torment. Among the latter evangelicals, the Holiness and Pentecostal Protestants accept the theory of evolution, whereas the Protestant fundamentalists believe that the Bible is literally true and therefore believe that Genesis, not the theory of evolution, is literally true. Now, you'll notice on my whiteboard that I've written Christian fundamentalists, not Protestant fundamentalists, and here's why. Whenever I talk about Christian fundamentalists, I'm actually talking about Protestant fundamentalists, but the history of anti-Catholicism in the United States has caused the American English dialect to render the word Christian as synonymous with Protestant. This means that creationism actually began with the Christian fundamentalists and then spread to Catholic, Jewish, and Muslim fundamentalists throughout the 20th century. While the Christian fundamentalists do agree with Catholic, Jewish, and Muslim fundamentalists on creationism, they are actually a minority within the Protestant community because, again, they face serious scientific disagreement from mainline Protestants, liberal evangelical Protestants, and the holiness and Pentecostal Protestants. For the rest of this series on creationism, I will focus mainly on the Christian fundamentalists, but I will occasionally reference their Catholic, Jewish, and Muslim counterparts. Join me again for the unrelated topic of ancient Mesopotamia in my lecture on History 01.